What's up, family status? I hope everyone having a great morning, great evening, great afternoon. Today I'm gonna give you 5 tips on how to grow your own food in containers. Number 1 is starting with the right size container for whatever fruit or vegetable you're trying to grow. For example, if you try to grow potatoes in something like this, you will fail every time because number 1, it's not that deep. You have to plant your potatoes 2 to 3 inches deep. And that's almost at the bottom of this container, so the potatoes won't have any room to grow. So this would be a terrible container to start potatoes in, but a perfect container to grow lettuce, kale, and spinach. But if you start your potatoes in something like this, a 20-gallon storage container, this is perfect because check it out. See how deep it is? So the potatoes have a lot of room to grow. This is perfect. But this 3-gallon container is not good for growing potatoes because it doesn't give the potatoes enough space to grow. Also, in my opinion, if you're growing things like collard greens or mustard greens, I wouldn't plant them in this container. And the reason I say that is because look how big mustard greens and collard greens grow. Check this out. You see that? So unless you're gonna always harvest your mustard greens when they're around this size, which is way smaller, you should grow your mustard greens and collard greens in its own containers like this, so they have space to grow as big as they want to. You don't want to bunch them up in storage containers together unless you want to harvest them this size, because your mustard greens or collard greens will be super bunched up once they grow this big. So these are the perfect containers for growing your mustard greens and collard greens, in my opinion. Number 2 is making sure you put something underneath your containers like cardboard or weed fabric, especially if you're growing on top of clay soil like us. And the reason I say that is when you don't put nothing underneath your containers, this is what happens. Check this out. Your roots grow through the bottom of the container and they start trying to get food from the clay soil. And when that happens, you might notice your plants start to have some problems and you don't know what's wrong. You might start thinking, am I feeding it the wrong thing? Is there something wrong with the soil? Is it a bug problem? No. The only thing that's wrong is that your roots are growing through the bottom and trying to get food from this clay soil. So the cheapest way to fix that problem is to use some cardboard boxes that you have laying around the house. And all you have to do is take it apart. Make sure you take all the stickers and tape off. Place it like this. Voila. And it's that easy to fix that problem. So now the roots won't grow through the bottom anymore. But you don't have to worry about putting anything underneath your containers if you're growing on your balcony, because roots can't grow through concrete or wood. So you only have to do this if you're growing on top of red clay like us. But something you can use on your balcony or on top of red clay like us is a water catcher. And these are perfect if you have a busy schedule, because if you're at work and you forget to water, your plants will still have something to drink. So water catchers are perfect for balconies and if you're growing on top of red clay. And make sure your water catcher is not that deep because you don't want the roots to drown. Number 3 is making sure you add drainage holes in the bottom of your containers before you start growing in them. And as you can see right here, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 drainage holes. And this is very important because if you don't add these drainage holes at the bottom, what will happen is if it keeps raining and every time you keep watering and those roots aren't drinking that water fast enough, the water will just start filling up. And what that will do is drown your roots. And what happens when your roots drown? The plants die. So drainage holes are very important when it comes to growing in containers. It doesn't matter what container you're growing in, just make sure you add drainage holes before you start growing in them. And a great way to add drainage holes at the bottom is using a drill. Number 4 is starting your containers with healthy and fertile soils. That's why we love our compost pile. But if you don't have a compost pile, you can start your containers with this. And you can mix it with some topsoil, and you can also mix it with some soil that you already have in your backyard. So that way you don't have to spend that much money and buy 100 bags of soil. And number 5 is making sure you feed your containers or have them on some type of feeding schedule, because if you don't, what'll happen is all the food that you're feeding your plants will eventually drain out the bottom. So that's why you want to make sure you have some type of schedule because if you don't, your plants will end up eating all the food in the container and it won't have anything left. So a great fertilizer to use for beginners is Dr. Earth Pure Gold. And the reason I say that is because it's organic, and also the NPK is super low, so you won't risk burning your plants.